June 13, paper 1. Right, angles in parallel lines to start with. Be careful with this question because the parallel lines are actually the ones going vertically as opposed to the normal horizontal ones. So parallel lines here show me that there's a C angle, which means that B must be 55 degrees because these two must add up to 180. These two are on a straight line, so they must also add up to 180, which makes A 125. Could have also said that A was 125 because there is an F angle with the 125 given. Again, we have the parallel lines running this way, so we can see that there is a Z angle formed here, which tells us that C is 52 degrees. Question 2, scatter graph. I've already drawn the points for plotting the scatter graph. Write down the type of correlation. This is positive correlation, as all the points are going in that direction. Draw by eye a line of best fit on your scatter diagram. So, straight line through the points, close to as many of them as possible. Remember, with a line of best fit, it doesn't have to go through the origin. Estimate the take-ins on a Friday with around 90 customers, so using the line of best fit, draw a line up from 90 and then take that line across, and we see that that is £440. Question 3. 2 types of banana are available to buy, fair trade and non-fair trade. The information is shown below. Calculate the percentage of the cost of banana that goes to the seller under each of these. So the seller under non-fair trade gets 12 pence out of the full 30, and we need to turn it into a percentage. To make a percentage easy, we need to make the denominator either 10 or 100. So I'm going to make it 10, so I've divided by 3, so I'm going to do the same on the top, which gives me 4 out of 10, which then as a percentage is 40%. In fair trade, the seller gets 6 out of the 30, and again I'm going to do the divide by 3 on the top and bottom, which leaves us with 20% for the seller in the fair trade. A newspaper report states that the grower gets too small of the proportion under non-fair trade. Explain how this is improved with a move to fair trade. So, under fair trade, non-fair trade, the grower gets 2 pence. So, non-fair trade, the grower gets 2 out of the 30 pence. Under fair trade, the grower gets 15 out of the 30 pence. So they get 15 out of the 30 pence. You don't have to do anything with these fractions. It is clear to see that under fair trade they get a bigger percentage and fraction of the amount of the banana. So we just one sentence then explaining that 15 out of 30 is a bigger fraction than 2 out of 30. On the grid below, draw an enlargement using a scale factor of 2, centre O. So from this point O to that top corner, I'm going 1 right and 1 up. So in my enlargement, I'm going to have to go 2 right and 2 up. So that becomes my new corner here. This corner is currently 1, 2, 3 right and 1 up. So it's going to be 6 right and 2 up, which is going to be here. Because there's this slanted line on here, I'm actually going to fill in a couple more points before drawing it because it's easier. So I'm going 1, 2 down and 3 across. So I'm going to go 4 down and 6 across for that corner, and then the last one, which is currently 4 down and 1 across, is going to be 5, 6, 7, 8 down and 2 across. With all points marked, I can then easily join these up to create the trapezium I'm looking for. Rotation question. Remember with the rotation question to ask the tracing paper if they haven't given it to you on the desk already. It is very difficult to do without, so make sure you ask for the tracing paper. So rotate triangle A through 90 degrees anti-clockwise about the point -1, -2. So trace the shape onto your tracing paper. Remember to just put a little arrow to point to show where it's facing initially, and then we are going to mark the point -1, -2. So -1, -2 is this point here. We're going to put the pen there, and if we're going anti-clockwise, we're going to turn it this way, and 90 degrees means that the arrow is now going to be facing in that direction, and then you would just draw over that shape, and that's the location of the new shape. Question 7, bearings and angles at the same time, because obviously it's not drawn to scale. Calculate the bearing of Z from Y. So we want to find here from Y, which means we turn clockwise from the north line. These two must add up to 180, so we're left with 133 degrees as the bearing of Z from Y. X from Y, so again we are going from Y. Trick here is to remember we have to go clockwise, so we want that whole turn around there. So that will be 360 minus the 47, which is 313 degrees. Rearranging the formula to make Y the subject. So we're trying to get Y on its own, so we need to move everything away from Y. So initially I'm going to take the minus t across and it becomes plus t. If we've got y squared, to get rid of a square we need to square root both sides. So square root of y squared gives me the y I want, and then I just put a square root around the g plus t. Second one, first thing we always do is get rid of a fraction. So we're going to have 3y plus w equals 5 bracket 2y plus 3. Expand the bracket, 3y plus w equals 10y plus 15. Now collect the y's together on one side and collect anything else on the other side. So I'm going to take this 3y over here and I'm going to bring the 15 across. So I'm going to get w minus 15 equals 10y minus 3y. So I get w minus 15 is equal to 7y. And remember, I want y on its own. I don't want to know what 7y's are, so I divide the 7 out and get w minus 15 divided by 7 equals y. Question 11. This question is asking you to use simultaneous equations, but it doesn't necessarily show that from the diagrams. So they're telling you about the perimeter and they're asking you to find out the dimensions of one of these small shapes. So what we're going to say is that every long side of these shapes are equal to x, and each short side is y. When they tell us the perimeter of the entire diagram, we need to be thinking, how can I find out the perimeter of that diagram, using letters obviously to represent the sides. So diagram 1 has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 x sides plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 plus 8 y sides to make the perimeter, which is 55. Using the same method for diagram 2, we get 1, 2, 3, 4 x sides plus this time 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 y sides equal to 50. Now I have a pair of simultaneous equations which I can solve using the method for simultaneous equations. I am going to multiply the top one by 4 and the bottom one by 6 so that I've got my x values the same. So when I do that, I'm going to get 24x plus 32y equals 220. 24x plus 6 12s are 72 and 6 50s are 300. Now I need to work out the y value. So because these two signs are the same, I'm going to subtract. So 24 minus 24 is nothing. 32 minus 72 is minus 40 lots of y. 220 minus 300 is minus 80. So I find that y is minus 80 divided by minus 40. So y is plus 2. Once I have a y value, I can just substitute that back into the original equations to find the corresponding x value. Always use the original equations, not the two we've modified, because if you've made a mistake here, then although your y value will be wrong, they won't accept you using these, whereas even if you get the wrong y, an x value found from this will still be accepted because you'd made the mistake earlier on. So it's 6x plus 8 times 2 equals 55. 6x plus 16 equals 55. And then we've got 6x equals 55. Subtract 16, so 6x equals 39. So x equals 39 divided by 6, so x equals 6.5. Now they have asked for the dimensions, so just to make sure they're clear, I can work that out. I'm just going to do a quick diagram and say 6.5 and 2 to represent the actual rectangle they're showing. Question 12. How many calls do Cat Boots UK last between 5 and 15 minutes? Well, that's this diagram here. So between 5 and 10 they had 100. And then between 10 and 15 they had 175. So altogether they had 275 in that time scale. Which company had longer calls on average that day? Well, if we look at the longer call sections, which is between 10 and 20 or even 15 and 20, it's clear to see that Cat Boots UK had more during that section. So the answer is Cat Boots UK, and your reason is something along the lines of they had more calls of longer time, or they had a higher frequency at the longer calls, something along those lines. Complete the cumulative frequency for Cat Boots UK. So how many people had a call of less than 5? So that would just be those 25 in that section there. Less than 10 would be these 100 and those 25 as well, 125. In this section then, less than 15, we're looking at that 175 plus that 100 plus that 125, so we've got 300 in total, and then less than 20 is everybody. So we've got 300 so far plus 50, 55, 60, so it's a total of 360. Use the graph to draw it. So less than 5 was 25, less than 10 was 125, less than 15 was 300, and less than 20 was 360. And then with the cumulative frequency there are two options. You can either use straight lines going through 0, 0 and then joining the points up one at a time, or you can use a smooth curve. A smooth curve is slightly more accurate, but if your drawing is anything like mine, straight lines work better. So calculate an estimate for the median of calls to Cat Boots UK. So there were 360 people asked. Be careful here, just because the diagram was up to 400, that doesn't mean we use 400. 360 is the highest point, so it's at the value of 180 that we have the median, which is what we are looking for. So that comes down here. We have 10 squares here worth a full 5 minutes, so each square is worth half a minute. So that is 10, that's 11 minutes on average. Interquartile range means we need to go 3/4 of the way up and 1/4 of the way up, so 3/4 of the way up would be 270. And then again we are going to read that value, and then we are going to go 1/4 of the way up, which would be 90, and then we will read that value and we will subtract. So at 3/4 it was 11, 12, 13 and a half minutes, and we're going to subtract from that the value here, which is 7.5, 8.5 minutes. So we find that the interquartile range is 5 minutes.